What does pride mean to you?
I think pride to me, number one, I hope that LGBTQ Arizonans and Americans feel proud every day. And I think that is just being authentically who we are, right? Being who we are, loving the wonderful people that we love in our relationships and our families, and just authentically being you. That to me is pride. I'm Angela Hughey. I'm the co-founder and president of One Community and One Community Foundation. Uh, my wife and I have been on a remarkable journey with One Community for the last 13 years. It's been, just a really incredible evolutionary ride, and one that I'm so grateful to be on with Sherry and then with our remarkable team. We live in Midtown Phoenix. We have two awesome furry people, Muffin and Piper. Cats don't get enough credit, I like to say, but so shout out to the furry felines. Transplant from the great state of Ohio. Fun fact about me is that my parents' hobby was Arabian horses, and that's what brought our family to Arizona. We came out in the mid 80s and would go to the Arabian horse shows in North Scottsdale, and really just thought that this was the land of opportunity. So that's how we got here.
I love that. I didn't know we had an Ohio connection. So bravo.
Go Ohio.
Yes. So we are celebrating Pride this month across the nation. What does pride mean to you?
I think pride to me, number one, I hope that LGBTQ Arizonans and Americans feel proud every day. And I think that is just being authentically who we are, right? Being who we are, loving the wonderful people that we love in our relationships and our families, and just authentically being you. That to me is pride.
I love that. I love that. How did you get involved with Valley Leadership?
I had a good friend that went through Valley Leadership Class 32. Not the best class ever. That is Class 33. There are still name tags to prove that. Highly contentious relationship between Class 32 and Class 33, and but was really prompted by a good friend. And she's like, "You need to apply and be out and be exactly who you are." And I did, and it was. I had folks that had gone through Valley Leadership after I had been accepted that happened to be members of the LGBTQ community, that had gone through and weren't out when they had their Valley Leadership experience. And there was pressure there. I don't hide my job, right? My job is to be the most openly gay person in all of the great state of Arizona. And I take that responsibility very seriously. And so I was out in my interview, I was out in my class, and it was a transformative experience for me, obviously, but also I think for many of my classmates who maybe in their professional lives were not accustomed to working somewhat alongside of someone who was openly LGBTQ. So it was a remarkable experience.
What year did you go through Valley Leadership?
Class 33. So it's been a while. Can't remember. I feel like it's 9 or 10 years ago. I mean, it was a while ago. So One Community was a much younger entity. We certainly didn't have the depth and breadth that we have throughout our state and the national reputation that we have now. And I think it was also much more difficult to be out a decade ago than it is now. We still have a lot of work to do. It is still not easy in some situations, depending on our families and the employers, organizations that we work for people to wholly be themselves and to be out, but we have made great strides. So it was a much more tenuous situation back then. I had classmates that wouldn't sit next to me, so.
Wow. Now
their loss.
That's exactly always their loss. Now, I didn't realize that Valley Leadership came after One Community had started. How did Valley Leadership affect what we know as One Community today?
So I'm grateful for my Valley Leadership experience. In fact, I was just with Gabby Cardenas, who was a classmate, and now 5 years into the Calibri collection. So I've made lifelong friends. There's a really, really remarkable camaraderie that comes from the VL experience. And so without doubt, it changed me personally. It changed me professionally. It made me a better person. And then I think really helped me professionally too. There's a lot of exponential growth, I think, both personally and professionally as I went through the Valley Leadership Class 33, and then also after, I think one of the really cool things about VL was kind of like there's this unspoken, there's this unspoken, I think, like if you've gone through VL, like you'll have a cup of coffee with another VL grad. And so I really took that seriously, asked for cups of coffee that might have been uncomfortable for folks initially, right? And that's what we're really known for at One Community is we'll have the uncomfortable conversations. We're comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I use the platform that came with being associated to Valley Leadership, I think, to lean into have conversations with professionals that represented companies and organizations throughout the state where maybe I wouldn't have had the initial opportunity to come across them, right? But because we'd both gone through Valley Leadership, that gave me the opportunity to really ask for those cups of coffee. And some of those relationships and uncomfortable cups of coffee have turned in, again, to lifelong friendships and really deep, authentic professional relationships and partnerships with One Community. So certainly grew One Community's network and our footprint through the Valley Leadership experience, and just was like, you come out better.
Absolutely. Now, I know what a One Community is, but can you tell us how did it come about and what was the reasoning for starting it?
Sure. So I was actually working in the Hispanic community, and I was out, and this is about 15 years ago. One Community is a 13-year-old organization now. Hard to believe we've been around for 13 years. Sometimes I'm like, it's been that long, and other times I'm like, it feels like it was just yesterday. It depends on the day. But I was working in the Hispanic community, and I had Hispanic community relations peers go through title changes, and they all became community relations managers. And so I asked my peers if they had dollars to invest in the LGBTQ community. And overwhelmingly, they all said yes. They represented, mid-sized and larger corporations and entities that really had very strong, viable footprints in Arizona. And then my next question was, what are you doing with the spend? And overwhelmingly, everyone said nothing. And so then my next question was, why? Why are you not investing in the LGBTQ community? And the answer was pretty consistent. We don't understand the diversity within the community. From a marketing standpoint, there were a couple of publications that people saw, but they really didn't understand how to connect with all of the diverse segmentation that make up our beautiful LGBTQ plus community. And then from a marketing standpoint, publications had a lot of gay chat ads in them, right? So my community relations peers would say, I represent XYZ company and we're more conservative, and I can't get an okay to place a marketing ad, even though we would love to provide our products and services to the LGBTQ community. I can't place an ad next to like a 1-800 gay chat ad. So took that knowledge, really understood that people did not understand who we were as consumers, and then professionals within folks' ranks saw that there was a void and that there was an opportunity. And what we knew from the work, from my professional work within the Hispanic community was like, we would always talk about myth versus reality. And in our Hispanic community, the myth is everyone came here last night and has an issue with paperwork. And the reality is, Arizona is full of 4th and 5th generation Americans of Hispanic descent. And we live in a state that at one time was Mexico. So people of Hispanic descent in this great state and around our nation have deep, deep roots in the great state of Arizona. But we have to educate people about, our acculturated, just remarkable Hispanic community. And in the gay community, because we didn't use the acronym as much that in 10, 12, 15 years ago, the myth was, we were all swinging from a chandelier. But the other myth was we have more money than God. And I was like, okay, we're going to go with the more money than God piece. And we're going to educate about who we are and the fact that we truly are every community, right? What's so unique about the LGBTQ community is we are literally we are every race, we are every religious belief and non-belief. We are every socioeconomic background. We have a variety of political beliefs. We're not all progressive Democrats, right? We are truly the most diverse community when it comes from a historically, marginalized minority community, because what we have in common is our sexual orientation and gender identity, right? And so that's where we came up with the idea of calling one community, because when we all come together, regardless of our background, our belief, where we're from, who we love, right? We have the opportunity to unite folks. And I think we have really, we evolved into policy in large part because of our Unity Pledge, which we launched in 2013. But we have the opportunity to create an Arizona and a nation that truly celebrates, respects, and protects us all, and to bring people together. And so that's how we came up with the name. A little bit more than you wanted, but like Sherry and I wrote this business plan out on our dining room table and believed in it so much that we emptied out our 401k. And my background was media. Yeah. So like we, in October of 2008, we went to California, we got hitched. We'd been together for 15 years, said I do, took our first gay cruise. First day on the cruise, we launched our first One Community website. And then like the next day, like the stock market crashed, right? And we were really heavily going into the Great Recession. And so we were founded in a time that wound up being very adversarial. But we've, I think prided ourselves in finding opportunity even in adverse situations. And so what the door opening was, in December of 2008, when we launched and going into 2009, was nobody had too much business. And so going back to that myth that we all have, all LGBTQ couples have a very large wallet, right? We were able to come in with this idea really around consumer activism. Our first tagline was, "You vote with your wallet every day." That is more true today than it was when we founded ourselves and launched 13 years ago. And no one had too much business. And we buy healthcare, we buy cars, we buy whatever your product or service is. And we are really remarkably loyal consumers, because it's not about what the cost of whatever the product or service is. It's about being treated with respect. It's about not being turned away. It's about not being denied service, more so 13 years ago than today. Although we still have work to do in our state, right? Half of our state has LGBTQ protections, half of America, not quite half of America does. So our rights, if we are LGBTQ, still depend on the zip code we are in. But yeah, that's how we launched.
I love it. And I'm trying not to start cheering over here. So go, Angela, go. You've started here in Arizona, but now you're doing some exciting national work. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been educating in municipalities, oh my goodness, for 8 or 9 years now. And last year was a really, really remarkable year for us. The city of Mesa, the city of Scottsdale, the city of Glendale, all center-right leaning cities, all adopted LGBTQ inclusive ordinances. And we did that work, that thoughtful coalition building, along with our collaborative partners at Equality Arizona. So happy to bring them into this conversation when it was really getting hot, right? So happy to have them beside us. But Mesa, Scottsdale, and Glendale all adopt LGBTQ inclusive ordinances in a 90-day period of time. And all of those ordinances were literally 7 years in the making, 7 years of educating, 7 years of coalition building with people of faith, 7 years of coalition building with the business community, and work and educating elected officials about what LGBTQ inclusive policy does, what it doesn't do, why it's the right thing to do. And oh, by the way, it's also really good business as well, right? That municipalities and states that do not have LGBTQ protections in place have absolutely put themselves at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to attraction and retention of top talent. From a tourism standpoint, tourism is Arizona's #1 export, right? So, Mesa did not like going up against, final bids against the city of Tempe, for new business, because Tempe would always say, but we welcome everyone. And so, now Mesa is there too, Scottsdale's there too, Glendale's there too. And with all that being said, we always believed that really the path to LGBTQ inclusive federal protections really goes through Mesa, Arizona. We've always believed that. And so this transformative opportunity comes through Mesa, Scottsdale, and Glendale, enacting their inclusive ordinances last year. And in collaboration with our great friends and partners at Equality Arizona, in January of this year, we launched a bipartisan coalition called Equality and Fairness for All Americans. And we truly believe that we can get a bipartisan bill over the line prior to the midterm elections in 2022. Yes, the clock is ticking. Yes, the window is small, but we believe that the time is now to enact comprehensive federal protections for LGBTQ Americans in employment, in housing, in public accommodations, jury service, and credit. And it's really important that we pass legislation. Regardless of how you feel about Roe v. Wade, the U.S. Supreme Court draft leak of Roe v. Wade really should give anybody that believes in equality and fairness for LGBTQ Americans great pause. We have currently in the U.S., if you're an LGBTQ American and you work for an employer that has 15 or more employees, you currently have employment protections. That needs to be codified. We have marriage equality in the United States because of the Obergefell decision. That not only needs to be codified, we have 2 Supreme Court justices who have been public and on the record in saying that they believe that the Obergefell decision went too far. And what we're seeing with this Roe draft leak is that if you have a Supreme Court decision, but you do not have the legislative codification, meaning that it passes through the Senate, it passes through the House, it makes it to the president's desk, and he signs that into law, then these rights and protections can absolutely be rolled back. So we are definitely sounding the alarm because I think that we should. I spent almost half of my relationship with Sherry driving around town with a big folder in my glove box, hoping that we had all of the right pieces of paper to ensure that we had the legal protections should one of us not be able to make decisions for ourselves. I don't want to go back to that. We just bought a new home. And, when we bought our home together 25 years ago, we had to sign as joint tenants with right of survivorship because we were not afforded the 1,138 rights and protections that come with civil marriage. When we purchased our new home just 4 short weeks ago, we got to sign as a married couple, meaning if something happens to me, no one questions who owns this home, right? These things matter to LGBTQ Americans. We should have the same rights and protections. And, the timing is really of the essence, right? We have to get this done, I think, by the midterm elections, or it is likely another decade. So that might have gone on a little bit longer than you had hoped, Michael, but we truly believe in a bipartisan solution. It's called equalityandfairness.com. We have literally, our coalition has literally flown in constituents representing 40 states in the United States of America to Washington, D.C. to sit down with their elected officials and let them know why they believe in this bipartisan framework that we support. And the fact that this awesome, audacious idea comes from organizations that are based in the great state of Arizona, I think should give us all a great deal of pride.
Arizona first. So why a lot of organizations have tried to take this type of legislation across the finish line. What is your approach that's going to be so different that's going to get it done?
Right. So you have 2 pieces of legislation that have currently been introduced. You have the Equality Act, and this current form of the Equality Act was introduced in 2015. It has center-left support. It is not bipartisan, right? You have Fairness for All Americans, which was introduced in 2019. It has center-right support. It is not bipartisan. Basically, what our framework does is it takes the best, right? It took 40% of the Equality Act, 40% of Fairness for All Americans. It adds in a national ban on conversion therapy. The president just issued an executive order during Pride Month banning conversion therapy. Again, that's an executive order. It can be rolled back. Conversion therapy is child abuse. We need to have that codified as well. And then the other thing that I'm super excited about is it brings employment protections for all American workers down from that federal number of 15 to 0, meaning that that every American worker, regardless of not just their sexual orientation or gender identity, but age, race, belief, disability, would now have the same employment non-discrimination protections. And I believe that in this great nation, that anybody that goes to work to provide for themselves and their family should have the same policies and protections, regardless of the size of your employer. So we think that this is a really, really great framework. It would really, it would be the largest civil rights update since 1964. I think it's important that people understand that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was bipartisan. I think it's important that people understand that it is only bipartisan legislation that's going to get passed in this current Congress. I also think that what you see is when you pass pieces of legislation that are partisan, they are largely rebuked, right? If you look at the Affordable Care Act, that's the most recent large piece of national legislation that was passed. And the people that did not vote for it, the party that because there wasn't that bipartisan support, you had folks that were not for the Affordable Care Act trying to roll back the Affordable Care Act for over a decade. So bipartisanship works, incremental change works. We figured out how to have bipartisan paths forward where we can have LGBTQ liberty and religious liberty together. When we look at the 330 municipal ordinances, they all have a religious organization exemption. When we look at the 20 state-based policies that protect LGBTQ people broadly in their states, they all have religious exemptions. It makes sense to us to keep those exemptions in place and do what's working, right? And get these real world protections to LGBTQ Americans. Oh, by the way, did I say we only have like another month to figure this out? No big deal. No pressure.
No big deal. Yeah, exactly. No pressure at all. So you said earlier that One Community is 13 years old and you've had a crazy amount of success in those 13 years. What's your secret? What's your secret sauce?
It's a great question. And I've thought about this a lot throughout the years, and it's very simple. We made a decision that we were going to lead by doing what we thought was right. And that if we didn't worry about the transactional piece of business, because every organization's in business, regardless of your tax filing status, we're all in business. We all have to have the dollars in our operating budgets to continue to keep our doors open and to provide whatever products and services we're providing. And our thought was we're going to care and just put forward that One Community is bigger than us, bigger than any individual that's on this team, and that we will make decisions based on what we think is right for the mission of One Community. And if we do that, then we've always believed that the transactional piece of what we need to do to remain sustainable would essentially take care of itself. And that's what's happened. And, the Unity Pledge is now the largest equality pledge in the nation, but we launched this educational campaign around LGBTQ inclusion. There's no dollars to ensure that we can do this program in any way, shape, or form. And we just said, we're going to bootstrap it. We're going to do it because we think it's the right thing to do. We're going to lift individuals and businesses and organizations that have a footprint in the state of Arizona up. We're going to applaud them and celebrate them for doing what's right, for being LGBTQ inclusive in the workplace, and understanding and proudly stating that LGBTQ inclusive Arizona, again, is the right thing to do and also good for a sustainable Arizona for us all. And we're just going to do this. And we did it and we continue to do it. And it's one of the things that, we're most known for. It's how we evolved into doing the advocacy work that we're doing, because the business community really walks alongside LGBTQ Americans and Arizonans, right? And I think that we are now the model for socially responsible business advocacy. But to answer the question really spot on, we've led by doing what we thought was the right thing to do. And we've just said the financial piece of it will figure itself out. And it has. Remarkably. Holy cow. I'm not going to say there weren't sleepless nights. I'm not going to say that there weren't a lot of Decembers in particular where, I don't know if we were going to get a paycheck. I'm not going to say that we have not sacrificed, because we certainly have. But it was really the right decision. Do your best, and the transactional piece will take care of itself.
Absolutely. So how has your experience with VL helped you become a change maker in the LGBTQ plus community?
I would say a change maker in the Arizona community, right? Because you may not be LGBTQ plus, but but caring about our LGBTQ plus community, I would say, this is my new word that I just love so much. I want a t-shirt. There will be a One Community t-shirt. Active ally, right? That we should all be active allies, regardless of what community we're a part of. We should be active allies in our neighborhoods. We should be active allies with our neighbors. We should treat people the way we want to be treated.
Love it.
I'm not Hispanic in my heritage or background. I love the Hispanic community, and I want to be an active ally to the Hispanic community. Meaning, if you are introducing legislation that is harmful, then we have a responsibility to stand side by side and be active allies, not allies on the sidelines, but allies actively along with our brothers and sisters that represent Arizona's remarkable Hispanic community. And I ask the same thing from people that aren't LGBTQ plus, right? Like you may think that these things, these 15 anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation that were introduced in the state of Arizona, these 15 anti-LGBTQ pieces, by the way, Arizona was remarkably number one in the amount of anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation introduced in 2022. There's a lot of things that I want to be number one for in this great state. The number of anti-LGBTQ pieces of legislation introduced is not where we want to be. It is not. It is harmful to LGBTQ Arizonans, and it is harmful to all Arizonans. If we are a state that continues to discriminate, we are not creating a sustainable future for anybody that lives in this great state of Arizona. I want people to be actionable allies and understand that we're all interconnected, right? That whatever this is, it might be targeting this community, but it will impact all of us in this great state. And I think that's being a change maker. I think that uncomfortable conversations through VL, because not everybody agrees with me, right? Made me a better person, made me a better professional. And I carry those tools with me today, right? I'm a decade older than I was when I went through VL. I've had many more uncomfortable cups of coffee, but I think that so many of those tools that were learned in through my VL experience are absolutely carried with me today.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what are your aspirations for the next 3 years, local, nationally?
Federal LGBTQ protections. I would like to take a vacation. And that might be all of year 2 if we get the federal LGBTQ protections. And then I really believe in partnering with really, really talented individuals. So One Community will be announcing our newest venture in July. We have this remarkable young man that we've worked alongside, Darby Vance, who is just a very, very talented videographer and photographer. And in July or August, we will be very publicly raising up our newest venture under One Community's umbrella, which is called Full Swing Studios, because we want to disrupt video. Every business and organization should have accessibility to high quality video at prices you can afford. And that's our mantra, right? So the opportunity to lift Darby, who is so talented, up and surround him with a highly skilled and capable team and provide storytelling opportunities through high quality video and podcasts to businesses and organizations of all shapes and sizes, right? And so I'm so excited about the growth opportunity with Full Swing Studios and what that will look like, right? So super excited about that. Should we be successful in July of this year with federal protections for One Community, we've already been making that pivot. So much of the work we do is around One Community Institute, right? Really, I mean, you can have policies in place, but that does not mean that you've created a truly inclusive workplace, right? And then also teaching the business community how to be good, socially responsible business advocates, right? Because that is what the workforce of today really is looking for, right? When we look at millennials and we look at Gen Z, they want to work for businesses and organizations that share their views of the world. And that, the number one driver is inclusion, right? So I think more educational opportunities with One Community Institute. We have remarkable LGBTQ inclusive tracks. We have remarkable DEI tracks. I believe that we will get even deeper into the offerings from an educational standpoint that we offer at One Community Institute, continue to walk alongside our remarkable business community, and to be a really actionable ally organizationally. Like, that's the next 3 years. But I do want to say that vacation could be all of year 2 if we do this right, Michael. I'm just saying, my feet are tired.
Well, fantastic. I wish you luck on getting that vacation. And I'm in love with that term, active ally. I think that really gets to the heart of what we need our community at large to be for each other, right? It's about recognizing each other's humanity and being an active ally for each other. So bravo.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Go Valley Leadership, and happy Pride.
Happy Pride.